You're watching CBC News Network. Good morning. I'm John Northcott. Here's what's making news right now.
Our party got a little bit more Canadian today.
The Conservative Party of Canada moves to effectively accept same-sex marriage. The party voted to drop its policy defining marriage as between a man and a woman. You're watching CBC News Network. Good morning. I'm John Northcott. Also ahead this hour, we're tracking weather extremes this weekend. Scorching temperatures sweep across central Canada, while heavy rains wreak havoc south of the border.
It's a sad day all the way around. The right choice was made. It was a difficult choice.
And a terrifying day at the zoo for a family in Cincinnati after a young boy falls into a gorilla exhibit.
A vote to delete this pro-family policy will gut the Conservative Party.
Let our actions speak louder than words. Let's pass this resolution.
Those are Conservative members at their party convention in Vancouver this weekend, just before a key vote on same-sex marriage. The Tories were debating a long-standing policy on the issue that had defined marriage as only between a man and a woman. Yesterday, it was voted down, but not before a heated debate. The CBC's Catherine Cullen has more from Vancouver. Justin Trudeau made those comments you just heard at his party's convention in Winnipeg. The Liberals made a big change of their own, voting overwhelmingly to adopt a new party constitution. As the CBC's Evan Dyer tells us, the result of that vote was in doubt until Trudeau made a personal appeal to the party faithful. Some were for and some against, but in the end, after a decade of legal same-sex marriage in Canada, Conservative delegates voted to drop reference to traditional marriage from the party's constitution. And that's where we begin our Sunday Scrum. Joining us in the capital is the Ottawa Citizen's Katie O'Malley and Globe and Mail's John Ibbotson in Vancouver, and in studio here in Toronto, freelance columnist Susan Riley. Thank you all for joining us.
John.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you, Susan, and everyone else by various means of communication. So the vote to change the Conservatives' policy on marriage got a lot of attention. So, John, you were there, and courtesy of Skype, as you said, framed and lit by yourself. How do you think it played out?
For the party, it played out very, very well.
Yeah, to John's point, I think Clark was in favor of the decriminalization of marijuana many, many years ago, and that didn't really go anywhere. But so Susan, the convention, as John's saying, the convention isn't necessarily the electorate, though, either. Do you think that the Conservatives might lose some of their hardcore base with this admission?
Where are they going to go? So we'll see what happens there.
It'd be interesting to see, because you have former prime ministers like Paul Martin, who had a very successful business career, and, of course, Brian Mulroney, gregarious individuals who really could play out in that sort of corporate social world. So we'll be watching. It could be interesting. We'll just switch to another convention now. It was a busy weekend on that front, of course. Liberal Party faithful met this weekend in Winnipeg. Fresh from his trip to Japan, the Prime Minister gave the main address, and here is what he said. It certainly did make headline news around the world. Well, it's all the time we have for this week. Thanks to all our panelists, John Ibbotson of the Globe and Mail, Katie O'Malley of the Ottawa Citizen, and freelance columnist Susan Riley here in our studios in Toronto. You can catch up with the Sunday Scrum online. Simply head to cbcnews.ca and find the politics page. You're watching CBC News Network. We're back in just a moment. We begin with the latest on the refugee crisis in Europe. The UN is reporting that about 700 migrants drowned in the Mediterranean this week. There's been an explosion in the number of overcrowded boats making the crossing from Libya to Italy. People smugglers are exploiting the route across the Mediterranean. The Italian Coast Guard has rescued thousands and retrieved dozens of bodies, but many more are believed to have died. Megan Williams has the latest from Rome. We've seen migrants coming from so many places in Africa. Who are these migrants? Where are they coming from now? Scene unfolded at an American zoo this weekend. Zoo staff in Ohio had to shoot and kill an endangered gorilla after it dragged away a young boy who fell into its enclosure. Stephanie Skandaris has all the details for us this morning. So, Stephanie, walk us through what happened. Former Liberal interim leader Bob Rae is apologizing for a gesture he made at the convention. It occurred as he was listening to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau praise his predecessor, Stephen Harper. Rae put two fingers in his mouth in a gagging fashion. The video quickly went viral. Rae has taken to Twitter and apologized, saying the joke was thoughtless and in poor taste. if Hillary Clinton is feeling the burn, it's probably not in the spirit intended. While Donald Trump has demolished his many opponents, Clinton just can't shake off Bernie Sanders. And just as victory in the Democratic nomination battle is in her grasp, this happens.
Are you prepared to debate the major issues facing our largest state and the country before the California primary? Yes or no? He wants to know if you will debate him.
Yes, I am. How much is he going to pay me? If I debated him, we would have such high ratings, and I think I should take that money and give it to some worthy charity, okay?
So if it was done for charity.
And so game on, said Bernie Sanders, but it took just 48 hours for one of Donald Trump's infamous flip-flops. He released this statement saying, the Democratic nominating process is totally rigged, and crooked Hillary Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the chair, of course, the Democratic Party, will not allow Bernie Sanders to win. Now that I am the presumptive Republican nominee, it seems inappropriate that I would debate the second-place finisher. Trying to channel Donald Trump when I say this. For more on this, we're joined by Louisa Savage of Politico. She's joining us from Boston via Skype, and Paul Brandis of West Wing reports, and he is in Washington. So, Paul, 48 hours, let alone a week, is an eternity in politics, especially when Donald Trump is involved. So, what happened here and why? Well, the Raptors had their backs against the wall on their home court last night. They needed a victory to extend their playoff series against Cleveland. The Cavaliers just too strong, and Toronto's historic run is over. Joined now by Lindsay Hamilton. What a run it was, and a number of key players involved in it.
Yes, and John, what a run it was.
Welcome back. You're watching CBC News Network, and let's take a look at our national forecast with Chris St. Clair from the Weather Network. And I'm glad it's you, Chris, because you are a man who makes sense of stuff, and the heat we've been getting in eastern Canada and will be getting the next couple of days, it needs to be made sense of.
Okay, well,
in Toronto, temperatures are expected to reach 29 degrees, but it'll feel more like 35. Environment Canada has issued a special weather statement advising people to stay hydrated. It's also telling people to keep out of the heat for extended periods of time. We'll take a closer look at how this heat is affecting people with Chris St. Clair from the Weather Network. I'm kind of looking forward to getting out into it, but I'm probably alone. Chris?
Well, yeah, I won't be going with you.